There's one main reason why I regret buying this NVIDIA RTX A4000 workstation class GPU and why I'm going to be swapping it out for something else. So let's get into it. When I first saw the NVIDIA A4000 back in 2021, I thought to myself, yeah, maybe it's time I get one of those grown-up workstation GPUs for my main editing and workstation PC. I mean, look at it. It's sleek, compact, has roughly the compute performance of a 3070 packed into a single slot form factor, stuffed with 16 gigs of error correcting VRAM, and all that with a TDP of just 140 watts, roughly 40% less than the 3070. And while it's been an interesting experience owning this from an enthusiast standpoint, I think I'm done with this experiment. I'm ready to go back to some sort of beefy consumer grade card. So why did I even seek out this GPU in the first place? Well, I've always been intrigued by the mysteries surrounding Quattro and workstation-like GPUs in general, because you just don't really see them that often. I knew this 13900K system I was building at the time would just be used for video editing and 3D design, so I figured, heck, I don't care at all about gaming performance on this machine. I have a super buggy, all Intel based system when I want to dabble with games. So why don't I just go ahead and spend a ridiculous amount of money on a 3070 that's in a pancake form factor. And that's what I did, just to try something different. So how was it using my little exotic blade of a GPU to slice through my everyday workloads? At first, in the honeymoon stages, it was great. It was so refreshing to have a normal, or dare I even say small sized GPU in a system that was still capable of holding its own in various demanding tasks, especially when it seems like GPUs have just been getting bigger and bigger each generation since the 1080 Ti days. Oh, and as a side note, years ago I actually used to seek out the biggest model of a particular GPU that I was interested in, and now it seems I'm doing the exact opposite, trying to find GPUs that just fit in my builds. So be careful what you wish for, I guess. Anyway, as time went on, I became more aware that when putting the A4000 to work, like when rendering a 4K video in H.265 for example, the card would absolutely bake. Not to mention the fan on this thing would just be screaming. But in the honeymoon stages, I thought, hey, that's just the sound of performance. And then more recently, I noticed, hey, this thing kind of bakes at idle too. So fearing for the longevity of my expensive 3070 Pancake Edition, I figured, what the heck? Let me turn down the power limit and MSI Afterburner to like 90%. That should knock a few degrees off. No? Okay. 80%? No, eh? Huh. Alright, well, how about as low as the power slider goes? 71%. And yeah, it still bakes, and it's still loud, and this is at idle. And I don't even want to know what kind of performance I'm sacrificing with these settings. In the meantime though, this Thermaltake Core P3 case was designed in a simpler time when every GPU on the market was in a completely unmanageable size, meaning nothing really fits in here nowadays without interfering with this front 360mm rad here. And yes, I know there are some workarounds to this, like some custom 90-degree mounts for this rad that kind of flips it forward and gives you some more space between the GPU and the rad here in the front. But I already bought a new case as a birthday present to myself last year, and I've been itching to build in that. So for now, I just want to round off this video by opening this white noise generator here and seeing why this thing is so dang hot even at idle. Or is it just the nature of cooling this much performance in a single slot design? Because I still need to use this card to edit this and maybe one other video before I get a chance to do my 13900K system refresh and get to break up with this A4000 for good. LOL, no. Refresh is already done, buddy. 4070's in there. This video was filmed months ago. If you think I can edit things on time, then you're mistaken. Alright, so let's get right into opening this card up and figuring out if there's anything wrong with it or if that's just noisy and hot, because that's just how it is. Alright, so it looks like we gotta start by just taking off 8 Phillips screws here on top. Alright, and there's our first look inside the card. I did blow this out really thoroughly before starting this, and as you can tell, there was one dust bunny living in there. And there's some more over here. So it is entirely possible that the entrance to the heatsink fins here, where the air has to travel in, was potentially blocked by dust, because I did find those dust bunnies, and that was after I blew it out already. That might alone be enough to get me better temperatures. But I'm also gonna just pop this heatsink off because I'm pretty sure it's just these 4 screws here, and double check how the thermal paste is doing on this because it's been sitting around 90 degrees Celsius roughly for about 2 years. So I'm gonna put some known good thermal paste in here. I'll probably use KPX and put it all back together and see what we get for temps. The thermal paste feels pretty much completely dried up on this. A little piece of it just hit the table there. It sounded like a little stone or something hitting the table. So thermal paste is definitely past its prime. So we'll swap that out and see if that helps while we're at it. Now this isn't meant to be any sort of a controlled before and after type test, but I am curious to see if there's any temperature difference before and after completely taking apart the GPU, cleaning out those dust bunnies we found in there, and repasting with the KPX. The system has been on for about an hour. Not entirely sure if you guys can read that, but system's been up for an hour just idling, and MSI Afterburner power limit is actually at 100%, and we're sitting at 49 degrees Celsius. And that is with this fan speed down at 50%. Before, the fan speed was up around like 70–80%, and it was idling at like high 70s, low 80s. So this is already a massive improvement. It's just hard to say if that little opening to the heatsink was plugged with dust, or was the thermal paste just completely dried up and no longer useful, or was it a combination of both? I also realized that I didn't actually show you guys temperatures under load before, but there really was no point. Like it just sat at 98 the whole time, 98, and it was thermal throttling. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to throw up a video clip quick in Premiere, and I'm going to render it, and I'm going to see what sort of temperatures we get. So yeah, a couple minutes into this render now, we're still sitting around 4950 C. Like, this temperature hasn't gone up at all. I'm going to see if I can find something that will hit the A4000 more specifically, but still, having this sit around 60, 70, 80% usage and not even going up at all in temperature, that just wasn't happening before, so this is a massive improvement. So I just fired up Unigine Superposition because I don't have any games or anything installed in the system, and this was just the easiest, fastest way I could think of to load the card to 100%. And it's going to be tiny up here, but we're currently sitting at 99%, 100% utilization, just pinned, and it's only hitting 72. 73, it might still creep up a little bit, but these temperatures were literally impossible before. If you remember, we were getting like 78 degrees Celsius at idle with it undervolted to 71% power target. So this is still lower than what we were idling at before at 100% load. Crazy. So that's it for this video. At least this A4000 now has a fresh application of thermal paste and is ready to go to a new potential owner if I decide to sell it. But now that it's back functioning quietly again and with the temperatures under control, it kind of makes me feel the same way about it as when I sought it out in 2021, which was that it was a super cool, unique GPU. But that's it for now. Thanks for coming along as I took apart this A4000 and figured out some of the noise and thermal issues with it. So thank you for watching, and don't forget to get subscribed to see this system refresh and other unique PC videos soon.